she would be a little late. Scale will not be here, so we're going to go ahead and start the meeting. So, like to begin this meeting as we do all of our meetings with the word of prayer. Nothing we would have here would be available, and the opportunity would not exist without our Lord and Savior. And a pastor who understands that. Mr. Jolly, would you lead us in the word of prayer?
Let us pray. Eternal God, our Father, we come with our heads bowed in humble submission to the totality of thy will, realizing and recognizing that you are sovereign God. We come as we begin this pre-commission session. We ask for discretion, direction, and determination to do those things that are best for the citizens of Jefferson County. We pray for each commission and every person that's present in this room. Guide us and hide us and hold us and keep us in your perpetual care. I ask in the name of him who died for us, but did not stay dead. It is in the name of Christ that I pray, and all believers say amen.
Amen. Commissioner Adams.
Yes, sir.
Several things and have to go first.
I did.
Here we go.
All right, I forgot my cheat sheet. Yeah. But you know what, I'll pull it up here. Thank you. Cheat sheet.
Tell them they keep the print smaller on this book.
I'm going to go a little bit backwards. Go ahead and do the community grant, if that's okay. I have a community grant with the Greater Birmingham Humane Society, and appreciate Commissioner Knight joining me in that for $5,000.
And I would like to add to that, too.
Another 2,500. Thank you.
That's what the scale's down.
I thought it was 5.
10. Move on.
All right, got a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. We have a number of projects in economic development on today. The first project we're going to do, kind of do it out of order a little bit, is Southern Research, and we have Josh Carpenter here, who is the CEO. Southern Research is doing an expansion on their current campus and supporting the genomics diagnostics that UAB is doing, and it has been a great partner with UAB. Dr. Watts has also sent a letter of support on behalf of Southern Research. Josh has given us a presentation before. I think he's over the folks that got mad at him for tearing down the castle, I think. And but that's where some of this development will be happening. And so, Josh, have I missed anything? The request is for $7.5 million. Is there anything that you need to add?
No, I'll just say two things quickly. First of all, I'll be brief since y'all heard about the project before. We have one pagers of refreshers for those of you who weren't around. But about a month and a half ago, my colleague Monica Mason and I presented this project. Today we also wanted to bring in Tom Brand. Tom is the Senior Vice President at UAB for advancement, but also the Chief of Staff to President Ray Watts. And I think the relationship between Southern Research and UAB is incredibly important, but not always well understood. Dr. Watts serves as the chair of our board, and the goal really is for Southern Research to play a translational bridge for economic development from the basic science research that's done at UAB. This project will create about 150 jobs and is projected to create about $103 million annual economic impact in Jefferson County. I'll leave these one pages with you, Cal, and then Tom, I'd like you to come up and say a few words, and we're here to answer any questions y'all may have.
Thank you, Josh.
I'll On behalf of Dr. Watts, I want to thank you for letting me be here and join you today. This is an exciting time for UAB, for Birmingham, for Jefferson County. As you mentioned, Commissioner Evans, we've invested a lot over the last 5 years. We've invested about $800 million in new facilities and renovations at UAB. We are excited about that. We are excited about the partnership with Southern Research. We plan on investing another $500 million over the next 5 years. One of our top priorities is commercialization. It's taking some of the basic findings we find at UAB, moving those to be commercialized, to ultimately create new jobs, spin-off companies. We're very excited about that. This modernization plan of SR, if you've been to Southern Research, you know modernization, it needs a little bit of that. So we are grateful for your consideration, but just wanted to share on behalf of Dr. Watts that this is a top priority for us, for our scientists, for the folks at UAB. We also think that this could help propel both UAB and Southern Research to be a leader in biotech and life sciences in the Southeast and really in the country, so we're excited about that. We appreciate your consideration of this $7.5 million deal.
It's also, the state has also contributed $45 million, and you already have that in the bank, right?
Correct.
And so which is the same that they did with the genomics at UAB. The addition of the jobs and wet lab space, and I know we've talked about this before, where this gives the potential expansion of bringing pharma in, or big pharma in, to help support manufacturing. And then we've also talked with friends across the pond in Ireland that are interested in coming and participating as well. So big things to come. Are there any questions for the folks, Josh or Tom?
I move aye.
Yeah.
All in favor, please say aye.
Cleveland Castle opposition?
Thank you for being here.
One thing that I would like to say, Josh, while on here, is we can give you this money. We're investing this money in you. Absolutely. Okay? We're looking for this $130 million at the bottom of it. If not, it would just be a gift. And we're investing in the future of Jefferson County. And that's the reason that we're making that. It's creating jobs. We're doing what we were supposed to do. We're creating an environment in Jefferson County for you to be successful. And you raise that tax base, you raise that quality of life that we're looking for, and we're pleased and happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. We're honored by the investment. We'll make it effort.
I'm glad and I do.
First things first, right?
She was on the Cleveland opposition.
All right, thank you for that. Next is a Liberty Park expansion called the Bragg. Hey, Jeff. We introduced Jeff Downs, who is the city manager for the city of Vestavia Hills, and Ashley Curry, the mayor, and then Whit Colvin, who is the attorney of record for this development. We've had already a presentation on the Bray. The only reason for the county to consider it is because it is master development. It is not only considering retail, but multifamily as well as hotel, and more importantly, it's also the of a very large corporate partner, not only for the city of Vestavia, the county and the state, but an international company in Medical Properties Trust that is has because of the development, because of the infrastructure that hopefully we'll invest in, they will stay. They will build a brand new facility that will bring property tax revenue without incentive. So this would be our incentive to go through that. The request is for $3 million over a 2-year period, and that investment will help build out the infrastructure. There are clawbacks within if the developer does not hit certain marks and certain percentages on retail and multifamily or hotel. All the above. If there are not percentages met, then that money will be refunded.
This has got to do with retail.
This is all inclusive. This is all inclusive of the master development. This will just facilitate the infrastructure.
What's the population of the West State?
39,000, just above 39,000.
Jeff, if I missed anything,
No, I think you hit the point. Again, we want to send from West Davie Hills a great thank you for your consideration. Mayor Curry, our attorney Whit Colvin, myself as city manager were here. We've always partnered very well with Jefferson County. This is the last 700 acres of undeveloped land in West Davie Hills. It's our last chance to do it right. And this mixed-use development, this master plan development would not happen if it weren't for a public-private partnership, particularly on the infrastructure side. Building the road network, connecting with Sacred Hollow Road through the undeveloped portions of Liberty Park. The city, as a part of the incentive, is contributing $20 million. And we're asking for this $3 million over 2 years from the county to assist us in filling this feasibility gap and making this project a reality. At the end of the day, as Steve said, you'll see Medical Properties Trust global headquarters. You'll see 102,000 square feet of retail. You'll see a full service hospitality option and multiple other benefits which drive those numbers.
Move.
all right.
So,
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I think the one thing that I would like to add to that is that during the presentation, Jeff also gave that there was a 5-year return on investment. Once it's built out, 5-year return, we can't ask for anything better than that.
They were here when I gave them, I talked to Southern Research, that goes to their, thank you for
so
the confidence.
when was this project going to
Thank you
finish?
for
It's
your
good.
ability to invest and the confidence that you have in your municipality and in Jefferson County. We're proud to be partners with you. Now, I'm sure Sheila.
When will this project be finished?
The town center portion of it, commercial section of it, would be finished within 5 to 10 years. The entire development, 10 to 15 years.
Long-term plan
And yeah,
is good.
then y'all will be coming back for some more money?
This is our last.
Just say no.
I'm just trying to find out. That's a long
Thank you.
time.
Thank you for being here. All right.
Thank you.
Mayor, thanks for coming and bringing Whit with you.
So this is the mayor right here?
Yes.
That is Mayor.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Whit, glad you got some gold flowers.
Exactly, thank you.
Man,
I'm Jeff Townsend, city manager. Good to see you. Thanks. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, next we have Kratos. Kratos is officially Project Blazer. And folks in here, David Umber has been the attorney for Kratos. He's with Mayor Cooper, and Tim Ferguson is also here with Kratos. And I had the great pleasure at the air show to meet the senior vice president, Ben Goodwin, and had a great conversation about the future of not only Kratos, but maybe what we can do in the future. So Kratos is formerly Southern Research's aerospace division, where they focus on hypersonics and optics. I'll leave it in optics, right? They are planning on growing there over a 5-year period with 76 high-paying jobs, which I believe the average wage is $92,000, which will probably require, I'm assuming, some expansion of the current facility. They are here after the IDB granted statutory abatements last week. We're doing here to do our job incentive for their not only the number of jobs, but also a $26.6 million capital investment David, have I left anything out?
No, I think you got it. In addition, so as Commissioner Evans mentioned, the Industrial Development Board has done some abatements for this project. The county's doing this wage credit. The city is also going to do that, and the state has incentivized this project. It's a very exciting project for not only Jefferson County, but the state, mainly because of the industry they're in and the emphasis the state and county are trying to put on the aerospace engineering, aerospace industry. And so this is an exciting project that, frankly, I didn't know it really existed in Birmingham. It was part of Southern Research's engineering division that they sold off to Kratos a couple of months ago. And so as part of Kratos, which is an international company acquiring this, they've got growth plans. And so we're hoping they do as much of that growth here in Jefferson County as possible.
And I should mention, as a part of the project process, could easily move to Huntsville. Huntsville, there's a footprint in Huntsville, also in Oklahoma.
Yep. They've got 100 jobs right now in Huntsville and facilities in Oklahoma that do very similar type stuff. And
so the importance of keeping them here.
Right.
The city of Birmingham is going outside the normal bounds of what they normally do and doing a job incentive as well.
Right.
Very exciting.
I move the project.
All right. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Can I like
Yes,
to
ma'am.
they do the same work that Bart Dickinson, they similar to the work that he does?
No,
That's not.
no. This is their biggest clients are the U.S. Navy and NASA,
Oh,
and so this is very technically lots of aerospace engineers, folks with master's doctorates, and dealing with hypersonics, which is evidently the wave of the future with in aerospace and aviation. And so it's a lot more technical than about this.
Security clearance.
It was a top
you can't
secret
see
facility
when you
for
go
me.
out there. So
Good deal. Thank you.
thank
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll see you Thursday. All right. The next one is Pack Health. We have Alex Patrick here with BBA and Trevor Hamilton with Ernst & Young. EY better? I'm sorry, you just EY better. You're Trevor. Okay, that's right. And we got some high-end folks. They'll be here for the next one. So Pack Health was a company that was grown organically, coming out of UAB with Mazi. I'm going to forget Mazi's last name.
Rasulia.
Easy for you to say. Mazi, yes. And Sanjay Singh, and that's one of the investors, and has grown it to be a very successful.
Whoever's on, please mute. Either that or speak up so we can understand.
It was Lenise. I muted her.
There you go. Pack Health has recently been acquired and continuing to grow. And I'll let you kind of explain, or Alex, a little bit more of what Pack Health does besides the telehealth side.
Yeah, we're a digital health coaching company, recently acquired by Quest Diagnostics in February. Quest is looking to expand our current office space. We occupy the old Tillman Levinson building. I guess you're all probably familiar with that. We're looking to expand that office space to be able to accommodate the growth that we have. We have some ambitious growth goals here locally. Looking to hire at least 200 employees to be in that office. That will be our frontline workers, which are our health coaches, which help people who have chronic conditions better manage their health. Quest is looking to establish kind of a center of excellence here locally in Birmingham. They have a smaller footprint throughout the state, and this would be a large investment for them, capital improvements, but also the growth of employees here locally.
And the 120 jobs over 3 years with an average wage of about $52,000 a year.
Yeah.
Are there any questions?
I'll move the project.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Thank you. We'll see you guys Thursday.
You took them out of order. didn't you?
No, I did them out of order, yeah.
Yeah. I was talking about the other one, I meant to talk about.
No, we're getting that. Don't worry, don't go anywhere. We're getting there. All right. That was number 4. Now we're going to it. So this one is with BBA and Supplier Scale. Emily Jerkins-Hall and Christy Hollingsworth are here from BBA to speak to it. Supplier Scale was originally an idea that came out of Prosper, Birmingham. And the idea was, initially with Prosper, it was business advisory services, which would help the initial focus was to help Black and women-owned businesses and to help them scale appropriately, whether it was technology adoption, legal help, accounting help, or just process oriented. So there was through that, and Prosper funded the first one, and BBA is running it. That they go through a cohort with a class for 14 weeks that will help them not only with making their companies better, but also giving them access to different opportunities with different companies that they could supply to or be a part of. BBA took that on and said, well, we'll be happy to do it. However, we're not going to limit it, and it's available to most folks with a focus on Black-owned businesses and women-owned businesses. It was a great pleasure to see the graduation last Thursday. We're gonna say it's Thursday or Tuesday, one of those days last week. And to see the folks that came out of it, how excited they were, and how well their businesses were doing in a short period of time, and how their growth has become even greater. So, Emily, have I missed anything, or what would you like to add to it?
Sure, I just briefly on. Thank you, Commissioner Ammons. And before diving into that, I would like to thank you all for your approval of those 2 economic development projects that just passed. BBA, we really appreciate your commitment to job creation. And we're excited. This program that Commissioner Ammons has introduced is really another way for us to create really great jobs in Jefferson County. And so pleased to do that. As Commissioner Ammons mentioned, we just finished up one of our cohorts, and we're continuing to work with those companies to give them specialized services, which will fall under this as well. We had a really high graduation rate, 95%, and the person who dropped out because they had a nice acquisition of the company. So good problem to have. We worked with a national partner, Enterprise, who is excellent in delivering curriculum, and we had an instructor who also owns a business locally walking through the program. So we're really pleased. 95% of our participants were Black-owned businesses, and about half were women-owned businesses. So it's really important to us to make that a priority. As we go into the next 12 months, we're launching another cohort, Team Up, this next week that's focused on growing great cultures and teams. That's a really critical thing in the company and get started to grow. So if any more things planned this next year, Commissioner Ammons will share of the program with Prosper and BBA. And so thank you all for your support.
This will help fund the next
Yes.
few cohorts. So this is not just a one-time thing. It will be over a number of cohorts for the future. The ask is $750,000, and this is a great program, a great process.
What kind of businesses are coming out?
Yeah, so it's a variety of businesses. The cohort we just wrapped up was a focus on professional services businesses, so they're a little bit smaller. And so we had anywhere from, a local tax technology company that just received the IRS certification that was in BBJ this week. You go in BBJ, you will see, I can send you all several links, but many of the companies are already being highlighted for recent wins. Local restaurants that are looking to franchise and expand their presence. And so variety. And this next cohort, we're serving companies that are a little bit larger. And so those may look like Startups Innovation Depot, but we'll continue to work with companies too that are small manufacturers. So it's really a variety. We vet them based on their commitment and then their willingness to scale and grow their company. And so we really want a great mix of industries.
And the one that you would recognize is Naughty But Nice Kettle Corn.
Yes.
that worked with the World Games. If you had popcorn at the World Games, it was most likely theirs, and it's some good stuff. And they'd already, they'd already been around for a couple of years, but this really kind of helped them achieve the next level. And some of the things that we heard early on was that, within COVID, PPP loans weren't available because they didn't have everything in place where they should have had it. Their documentation paperwork wasn't there, so it was. This will help them get there and help them achieve where they can have access to capital and other things that'll make it.
Okay. Wow. I second it, and thought you would talk about that other naughty advice, but that's.
All right, I have motion and second. All in favor, please, aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Larry. The next one, I want to call on Othel Phillips to give an update on Hallmark. You may have seen it in the BBJ this week, but I get him to give an update on where things are.
Some good news. As you know, the county and the city of Warrior went in jointly and purchased the Hallmark Farms, and right during COVID, it kind of slowed the economy down a little bit, so we had a good time to revamp the farm and get it ready to market. We got a hit last week. We've been working with Marshall Steakhouse and RV Parks in January, and they made their official announcement last week that they're going to do a $15 million steakhouse and a nice RV resort. The steakhouse currently in Mississippi has been voted by the Cattlemen's Association 3 out of the last 4 years #1 steak in Mississippi. It also, they serve between 3,500, believe it or not, from Thursday through Sunday, 3,500 to 4,000 people per day. You can check them out on I-22 going into Memphis and Holly Springs, Mississippi, if you want to check it out a good time. But they're starting the process of purchasing 95 acres on the east side of the interstate, not the mansion side. So it will work well with future development on the west side. So we're looking forward and excited about that project. And just, if you don't have any questions, I'll be around.
And this was the land that we thought we would sell last or maybe never at all. So this was a great win for the county and especially North Jefferson.
But it fits perfectly for what they're wanting to do because
Do
of
we
the
have to
layout.
we have to get them incentives?
So they would qualify. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
You wanted to say something?
Yeah, as y'all know, we've been working with Moody's and Fitch and S&P, Theo, Angela, Travis, for weeks now on our ratings. And in doing so, I worked with Othel to put together some numbers off the state's website, and I just wanted to point this out after this. In 2019, Jefferson County, based on what y'all have done, Commission as a whole was number 5 in the state in investments, number 4 in jobs created. 2020, you were number 4 in investments, number 1 in the state in jobs created. 2021, number 2 in investments, and number 1 in jobs created. And I'm sure 22 is going to be probably put you at the top 2. So phenomenal job what y'all have done and working to create good jobs for Jefferson County. It's amazing.
And is there any way you can break it down and tell us what type of job?
I can't, on the
We'll
website.
get that,
I can't.
BBA can pull that together. So I'll get them to pull that together. That ends my report.
All right, let's go back to, that'll end Christmas in August. We have a pretty commission, Public Works, Community Services, and Governmental Relations Committee. You have environmental services, you have gardening, oversight support, amendment number 3. Any questions?
I'll move the item.
All in favor, say aye. We have encroachment agreement, Edmund.
I'll move
No
it.
money. Have it moved.
Yep.
All in favor? Aye. Then we have, do roof control. So roof control there is, amount requested there is $1,495. Which one, Joe? 3. Okay. Second. Motion second, all in favor, say aye. Motion passes. Community Development, Community Resource Services.
Department of Community Services, Dr. Hamilton.
Good morning, Commissioners. We have 4 items this morning. The first item is for the North Smithfield Storm Shelter number 2. It's a revocable license agreement between
Made you get up, didn't you, Don?
The first item is for the North Smithfield Storm Shelter number 2 with the North Smithfield Manor Greenleaf Heights Community revocable license agreement between the Civic League and Jefferson County for the oversight of the facility. Number 2 is a revoking the storm shelter license agreement with the North Smithfield Manor Greenleaf Fire Station. Their attorney has stated that they don't have the authority to oversee the facility. Number 3 is amendment number 3 with the Birmingham Urban League for the ERAP 1 program. This is to move $6,105,964 to BUL for the oversight of the remaining ERAP funds. $1,364,464 is coming from neighborhood housing services, and the remaining is $4,741,500 from the state voluntary reallocation funds. The funds that are being transferred from NHSB has to be spent by the end of next month, and the state voluntary relocation funds have to be spent by December 29, 22. Finally, is Thomas Gloria lien release. This lady has paid off in full her mortgage, and basically we just released it.
All right, number 1, congratulations on this, Gloria, for doing that, making that mortgage. Number 2, can we spend this money before the deadline?
They're spending it very high rate.
Tyler's like, oh yeah. All right, in North Smithfield, I know that that's been kind of a controversy. So is the fire department is no longer managing, and this community league is going to manage it?
That's right. And they're also overseeing storm shelter number 1, so they have experience to get that as well.
Okay, and we're subsidizing them in some way for?
Yes, sir. Basically, we're reimbursing them for their liability insurance, and then we're doing the major maintenance and the insurance on this.
Okay, any other questions? Then I'll get a motion to move item 1 through 4.
I'll put it.
Second.
And first and second, all in favor?
All right.
Thank you.
And, we have Monique here with youth detention. Monique, are you on? Okay, we have a contract to provide training and certification for the juvenile officers over in youth detention.
I'll second. This is a good program because it teaches our officers what to do and what to watch for in case somebody who has some issues before it gets too far gone. So this is a good thing.
First and second, all in favor, say aye.
No.
Yes, I have one community grant.
Move it.
Second.
First and second, all in favor, say aye.
Okay, construction. Beverly? Beverly? As you do this, okay, as you go through the city queue down and representing here, you can update on those roads and what we're about to do out there, so we can update the city council. We want to make sure that we're all on the same page. I talked to the mayor yesterday. Okay. What are we doing in good thing? They're doing their stage 2 paving.
Did you want me to do that first or go?
No, well, you can.
So, The Group 2 paving includes Newtown Road, Virginia Drive, and Pleasant Grove Road. And we had several projects that had to go in advance of those. It was pipe replacements and things that we do to prep the roads. I think there might have been some confusion that that was intended to be the work. It's not. So the contractor is preparing to mobilize in, and to begin that, that's going to involve milling, subgrade stabilization work, and then the actual paving. And then we also have the grant that was passed by the city council, or the intergovernmental agreement to do the Hueytown section of Virginia Drive. So that'll be coordinated with the contractor's work as well.
So,
Do you have any questions?
No, sir.
so those are county roads except for the portion of Virginia
Yes.
where our city's taking.
There are 3 roads that are scheduled to be paved, and what we did was, that caused so much controversy, is they went in and repaired the base that was failing on some of those roads.
And we had a pipe replacement, yes.
And you had a pipe replacement. And as they did that in anticipation of getting the road paved and being smooth, there was some controversy that the Jefferson County was starting in their road work. And a little communication will go a long way in saying, no, that's not what we're doing. They're preparing this to make it better than it's ever been. That works out a lot better.
Who roles we have in here, John?
I couldn't get you an exact count, but
It's a lot.
3, 4.
Yeah.
I would have to pull the agreement out.
You could get with me and do an update on District 4 too, for sure.
For the agenda items, number 1 is...
I'll move 1 to 11. All in favor? I was taking it back there a minute. I was relishing that moment for a minute. All right,
So is Heather.
yeah. We have a minute from the commission meeting on July 28th. Everyone read those? That's right. We will do the agenda. Thank you very much. Sheriff has a cardiac solution purchasing agreement for Lucas training device. 79,980. Been moved. Second. All in favor, say aye. We have ARPA, Fitch and Associates. This is a big one. We have,
Can we do that at the end?
you want to do it at the end of the entire report? Okay, that'll be fine. Guys, Fitch, y'all, hang tight.
Yeah, I don't want to do the last one.
We'll do it, to be, make sure it's clear, that agenda modifies the agreement that y'all did with Fitch for doing the study. It was just the correct federal language in there. So when we pay for the study, we're
This is
ready.
Y'all go back. You're not time yet.
Not time yet?
Not
All
time
right,
yet.
sounds good.
All right, have motion second, all in favor, say aye. Joe,
Finance.
while you do that, it's your cup time.
Yeah, I'll go get one when they start.
You may get one?
No. Ms. Dixon.
Good morning, Commissioners. Item number 1, 2, and 3 are our normal encumbrance report, purchasing agenda report, and purchasing exception report. Item number 4 is the unusual demand report.
I'm in 1 through 7.
Thank
I
you.
have a motion 1 through 7, all in favor, please say second. Do I have a second?
I said so.
Okay, I'm sorry. All in favor, please say aye.
Item number 8 is the Terminex Pest Control Amendment, and this amendment reflects adjusted prices that are lower. The end date, Millie, if we can do a pen and ink, should be 9/30/2022. It removes the termite services. This gets us to the end of the fiscal year, and we are releasing a new bid this Friday. And we've worked with the departments to
Get rid of some pests. Do I have a motion? Motion second, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Item number 9 is our Kavanaugh McDonough OPEB evaluation. It gives us the actuarial services to evaluate the liability for our post-employment benefits for audit purposes.
Did we hire them last year?
It's the same contract, it's a renewal on
Do
the,
we have to do this every year? I mean, once you establish the overhead, does it change?
yes, we update the liability every year for the audit purposes.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion? Second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Item number 10 is our engineering services associate renewal. This is also required by audit. It's a evaluation of our landfill liability.
Move. Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Okay, under our budget management,
We got two packets.
oh, I'm sorry. I missed those.
Do I have a motion?
Move the back.
All in favor, please say aye. Okay.
Budget management office, we have our multiple staff development, our individual staff development,
Move it.
and information items.
All in favor, please say aye.
Thank you.
Board of registrars, Jerry is out with one of his, he'll be at school, but we have item 1 is a precinct split. Hoover, do you have any questions?
Move on.
I have a motion for items 1 and 2. Do I have a second? All in favor, please say aye. Okay. General Services, Ms. Wilkin, are you on?
Yes, Commissioners, good morning. General Services has 2 items this morning on the agenda. One is AMAPAR, One Stop Environmental for asbestos abatement at the Salvation Army building. And the second contract is for the demolition of the Salvation Army building.
Move 1 and 2.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Human Resources, Mr. Margaret, will take that, or you? Mark?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Oh, there you are.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. This is Lauren Warren. First item on the agenda is a contract for executive search services with Slavin Management Consultant to conduct a nationwide search for the Chief Human Resources Officer position.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Derek Williams. I'm going to address items number 2 through 8. Items number 2 through 8 are the renewals of the county's benefit contracts. Item number 2 is to extend the current contract with MetLife for prepaid legal. Item number 3 is to extend the current contract with MetLife for disability insurance. Item number 4 is to extend the Aflac contract for supplemental insurance. Item number 5 is to extend the Delta's dental insurance contract. Item number 6 is to extend the contract with Blue Cross to administer the health plan. Item number 7 is to approve the agreement for the county's health plan with Blue Cross. And item number 8 is to extend the contract with Behavioral Health Systems for the mental health, substance abuse care, and employee assistance program.
All right, appreciate it. Let me ask you this. On the number 5, the Delta dental insurance, you got a decreased rate of 6%. Will that be losing any services or decreasing any services?
No, it's not. It's going to maintain the exact same contract. We were just able to negotiate a better rate.
Okay. And the increase in MetLife on the disability insurance and also the increase in Blue Cross health plan, is that going to increase the premiums, I'm sure?
I'm going to ask Mercy O'Byrne to come in and address those specific questions for you. Can you come off mute and address those questions?
Yes, the LTD long-term disability, the rates are going to increase, the 100% employee pay. On the health plan, that is a commission decision on whether the premium rate increase or not.
Okay, on the disability insurance, will the benefits increase or just the price that it's going to increase 20%?
Just the price is going to increase 20%. It had increased more, and we were able to bring it lower.
All right, when's the open enrollment date on that?
On which one?
On the health insurance.
October 1st.
We are kicking off before the end of this month.
So it'll be
The
effective.
tentative dates are, we have August the 22nd through the end of September 2nd, or the 30th through September 9th, depending on how we get everything finalized.
All right. Does that give us time? You say it's a commission decision. The commission's not going to have time to weigh any options before the enrollment period's up. So how are we going to do that?
So we have August the 30th, which allows us about a little less than 3 weeks from now.
Yeah, but we won't have a,
We could-
yeah, when do you plan on showing us the information? How do we make a decision?
We have a commission meeting next week on Thursday, and that's it, before September.
The information has been shared with county leadership, and we will present that to you again if you would prefer that we do the same.
Well, you asked for our decision, but you did not give it to us, so that creates a problem. If you will give it to the county commission and allow them to have options in which to make a choice from, we'll make an educated choice and get back to you for implementation of that.
Well, I think she said she's giving it to you guys. You guys, well,
Yeah, I'll get it to you as soon as possible. That's not long. I'll give it to Angela and show you what we have in the budget.
Yeah, we're not just gonna rubber stamp stuff.
Dave?
On item number 7, where it talks about the Blue Cross Blue Shield increase, what I would recommend is considering a comprehensive discussion about that plan after first of the year for possible changes to the plan for cost control purposes. So we can theoretically decrease this 9% increase in future years. So there'll be just a subject matter workshop just on that item alone. And the other thing I wanted to point out on the long-term disability and the long-term disability, there is a possibility of bundling that with some additional services, which the HR staff is looking at to put together that RFP for implementation and consideration for lowering those overall costs for next year. And that bundle would include some additional services provided, like FMLA or ADA administrative services, and that'd be all part of a total package provided by one provider. So the task is to have those put together so our overall costs for those programs go down for next year.
It's going to put the onus on your back to give us the best rates along with the best service, because in the inflationary spiral we're in, we understand that the costs are going up. But this commission has to look after its employees too, and we don't want this to cost them their benefits that they receive. Okay?
Understood. I think there are a number of, from a discussion we had on Friday, there are a number of things that can be put in for cost controls that the employees will not pay for. It's behind the scenes administration things, some additional cost controls for prescription drugs, et cetera. So any impact to the employees from a recommendation standpoint, increasing that copay would be the last resort. So we would want to put these places in first. And in addition, there would be estimates as to what those cost savings would be attributed to each element that would be created for your consideration before we get to that point.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Appreciate the overhaul of everything. All right, do I have a motion on 1 through 8? So moved. Motion and second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Personnel board, we've got a couple of items.
I'm moving to move there.
These are acknowledgements, and we'll have a motion. That's a second. All in favor, please say aye. Probate court, don't know if anybody's on this Arion contract. I don't know what that is or what they do. Present amount is $150,000. Is anybody on from probate?
Anyone on from finance that know what it is?
Nope. All right, I'll ask that we move it to the agenda, and I'll get some clarification on what that is. Do I have a motion? Motion? All in favor, please say aye. Tax assessor, we've got a couple of items. Have a motion? Second? All in favor, please say aye.
Community grants.
Two grants, 1 and 2, a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Had an item on for discussion of world games. Since we got this other presentation, we'll move that to the next week. Into my report.
Now, go with Fitch and Associates. This has been a long awaited report from our ambulance crisis.
We have Todd Sheridan coming in with Fitch, and Bruce and Kevin who are working with them. Look forward to hearing from them. We have many interested parties in the audience that I said. Let's listen to the presentation, see what we got, and then we will allow questions and answers after that, since this is a joint effort from our fire districts, from our municipalities, and our county government. You leave the song?
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. Just waiting for everything to pop up on the screen.
I want to, before he starts, these gentlemen met with each commissioner individually yesterday and gave them, along with County Maslin, a more detailed briefing than what we will get now. And they will be available after this meeting for any questions and answers that any of the individuals here should have concerning them. What I'm going to stress that we need to cooperate, we need to have input, and we all need to work together to try to solve this problem, because lives are at stake. Okay. A lot of these are quality of life issues. This is more important than that. This is something that we need to do, and it's our responsibility as a commission and our first responders. Make sure we work together to get something done.
Thank you, Commissioner. So, first off, I want to introduce myself. My name is Todd Sheridan. I'm one of the senior associates with Fitch & Associates. I recognize a lot of faces in this room. I know we went around and spoke with many of folks during this. Second, Commissioner, I want to thank you all for allowing us in commissioning this study and allowing us to work within your community. I know public safety is really, a critical part, a critical infrastructure piece for your community. And for that, we thank you for allowing us to be a part of it. With me today is Dr. Bruce Bruce Muller. We have to always think it Knight. Dr. Bruce Muller. He's a former fire chief and former county manager and public safety director. And we have recently promoted deputy chief of the Orlando Fire Department, Kevin Preston, with us today. Is going to be helping answer questions. So overall, I just want to give a little bit of overview. We were commissioned as Fitch & Associates back in 2020 and 2021 to review overall Jefferson County's EMS system. For that, in our review, Birmingham, the city of Birmingham, was not commissioned as part of the study. They did not come in and were a part of it from the original side, even though we tried multiple times to bring them into the study. Jay Fitch, who started the actual study, he retired. And so when he retired, I took on leading the project for the firm. Now, what we're going to go over today, what we wanted to stress is this did not happen overnight. This is kind of an organic process that happened years over years. However, it's critical that the commission, that the county, that the leaders in this room work together to solve the overall EMS problem here in the community. A little bit about our methodology. The Fitch & Associates came in and we not only met with the leaders originally, came on site, met with folks, then we were asked and provided a 150 question survey. And this 150 question data report, was to ask for a lot of data within the 911 centers and the agencies within the community. Those, I will say, the data request was limited at best in response. One of the biggest challenge points that we had was the data collection from the 911 communication centers. We're going to talk more about that. So you have 14 different 911 communication centers, all of them holding their own data. And the challenge point is from a commission perspective, you have very limited oversight, governance, and or ability to see what's going on in your system to make strategic planning. Some of our critical findings, and we're going to talk a lot about these here in a bit, but as of today at the county level, really there is no EMS system in place today.
And what I mean by that is you have a very fragmented system. You have multiple agencies, and we'll talk more about the types of agencies you have in a bit, trying to bring together somewhat of an EMS program, but you don't have a system in place. The challenge point today, in speaking with a lot of the community members, is you will have a delay or no ambulance response in certain areas of your community. When we say a delay, we talk about the fire service and speaking with some of the individuals from the fire departments. Fire departments will go on scene and wait 30 minutes before they start treating a patient because they never know if they have to guide them to their own personal vehicle to move them to the hospital. You may not get a response for hours or at all. We'll talk more about how that's a challenge. You have a chaotic 911 system, meaning your 911 call taking, you have 14 different communication centers. We'll explain why that's chaotic, but your challenge point is today, there's no consistency. Callers are having to bounce at times between 3 and 4 different communication centers to get to the right one. If you're standing in the same center, and you have 2 different carriers, you may go to various centers. So there's nothing coordinated about the 911 communication centers in the county. Overall, EMS is not recognized as an essential public service system.
Todd, did I hear you say that a unit would respond and not give care for 30 minutes?
So give me 1 second. So I'm going to sure. Okay. Yep, we're back.
That's what I thought I heard.
Okay. And really, EMS is not recognized as essential public safety within the community. So at the state level, it was recognized for a funding part that EMS is an essential service, however, not dedicated such as fire and police in the communities. Furthermore, Jefferson County as a county does not have specific oversight both from personnel, governance, or authority as it relates to service within each one of the municipalities in the community. Last but not least, at the county level, there is no single entity that is accountable for the coordination of public service within Jefferson County. Other systems within Jefferson County that are much smaller than yours, surprisingly enough, being that you are the largest and most populous county within the state, have public safety departments or public safety directors in place that help do the coordination at the county level. However, Jefferson County does not have that today. Can I get the next slide, please? So we're going to start with the end and work backwards into this. So the options that we're talking about within our study is for 2 parts. The first one is that Jefferson County needs to consider and urgently create a formation of a public safety department to create the coordination and bringing all the fire departments, communication centers, and EMS within the county together. Outside of what will be the 4 options, we also state that that 911 center, the system needs to be fixed. You cannot have 14 different programs within your community to help you make strategic planning. It's not best for life safety or the community. We provided 4 options. Out of the 4 options, we have what we call option 0, which is status quo, which in our belief as a firm, status quo is no longer an option. You really have people not getting the public safety and public service that's needed for the citizens here in a timely manner. Option 1 is the purchasing of ambulance coverage in what we're deeming as the non-dedicated service areas. We'll talk more about that in a minute, and of course implementing the public safety department. Option 2, with the formation of the public safety department and creating funding for the community, helps centralize purchasing. There are certain items that everybody, to include the fire service, EMS agencies, utilize throughout the county, such as medical director, their patient care reporting, vehicles that can be standardized and help purchase across the community that can help create sustainability. And number 3, there's always the option of a single provider system, but that would be a long-term strategic situation. Next slide, please. So over the next couple slides, we're going to break this down into really the 3 main focused areas, and that is really the dispatch center, the EMS system, and county oversight. From a dispatch center, As we've mentioned a couple times, we have 14 different PSAPs, or what we consider communication centers within the community. Not only that, you have different funding models that come in from the state, and then somebody may contract for dispatch services to, let's say, Shelby County or Blount County, and not even use your own 911 center. That redundancy within your system is extremely costly. I know people talk about outsourcing, but you're not even bringing it in-source. Everybody has a different set of software. Everybody has their own programs. That elevates the overall cost within the community. Furthermore, not having all the calls coming into a singular location to be able to ensure somebody gets help, to ensure the data is collected, to understand what the actual response times, that needs to be tackled. We do not believe that you need to go down to one 911 communication center. Our recommendation area this big is to make sure that you do have redundancy. What we mean by redundancy is you can take options. You have Hoover, who has a very sophisticated center. You have downtown Birmingham, or city of Birmingham, excuse me, and you have here in Jefferson 911. So at a minimum, you could come down to 3 if you needed to and operate that, create that efficiency. There are some ways to structure that if it's through software, if it's really the county owning the software, and if you keep the 14 PSAPs providing that software out to the other communities so that all data is collected in an organized fashion. As most members in this room know, NFPA, National Fire Protection Agency, they have specific standards as it relates to fire service. They also, 1221 is the oversight standard for the communication center. And right now, as a community, we do not meet the NFPA standards for communication center. Next slide, please. From an EMS system, this is where the fragmentation occurs. Not only have we talked about the 14 different PSAPs, but you have 4 different for-profit EMS providers within the community. You have 2 adjacent counties that respond within the community, and you have 12 fire departments, excluding Birmingham, that are responding for EMS. And again, no specific county oversight as it relates to coordination. Some of your challenge points when we start putting this together is you wonder how we got here. Well, part of this is some of these areas within your community that we consider as non-dedicated service don't have contracts with private providers. So there's not only no dedicated funding, there's no dedicated performance standards, and there's no expectation of needing to staff. You have a contracted provider, or a couple of them, that are coming in to assist, that are trying to staff every day, are trying to do what's good for the community, but there's nothing dedicated, coordinated, or expected on paper for that level of service. From that, the private agencies are trying to survive what we consider as on their own merits. They have to be able to live with the bottom line, so they're doing inter-facility transfers out of hospitals while they're trying to load balance that with 911 to ensure that they can maintain staffing and profitability. A couple of the pieces that we found quite interesting. And when I say quite interesting, we were here for just one day, or I will say, well, 1 week, I will say. During that time, when our two teams went around, met with pretty much every fire department, communication centers, we went and had a robust time here within the community. We had a mayor articulate to us about a child dying, not receiving an ambulance, about not all agencies within the area operating to their EMS licensure, meaning that the EMS licensure ensures that people are doing mutual aid. We witnessed one ambulance service saying we're only staying within our community when there was a call 5 minutes away for an unconscious person, and they did not respond. We saw where the canceling an ambulance at dispatch. Somebody had been waiting about 2 hours, and somebody got canceled on their response. And then we were talking to a fire service within the community, and we did find that patients, and I think this goes to Commissioner Knight's question earlier, was about they will sit back and withhold treatment for about 30 minutes to see if somebody's coming, and or if they're going to have to find an alternative way for folks getting to the hospital, because they said, you know, we can't hang IV bags, put them in a car and tell them to drive themselves, or us drive them in a personal vehicle, because it's going to be hours-long response. That to be said,
I have a hard time believing that.
That to be said, any other system, one of these would be considered a sentinel event. here, this was just a week in which was articulated to us and what we're talking about. Next slide, please. So from a county perspective, as we talked about earlier, the county needs to look at and help create the critical and fundamental infrastructure for the oversight and coordination of the EMS program for the county. Right now, smaller counties, as mentioned, have a dedicated department to help with that strategic oversight, to help with the coordination of all these folks. We're not saying that we need to eliminate folks, but we need to have, at the county level, a coordination, a general understanding of what the response is to the community, and from that response, the community develop strategic plans for the county to assist with sustainability for EMS within Jefferson County. Next slide, please. So we're going to suggest as a firm, as one of the immediate actions, is for the county to take and declare public health and safety emergency for the provision of purchasing of unit hours to ensure that the dedicated, or the areas that don't have dedicated service have a minimum baseline level of EMS response. The reason why we say this is right now you have a couple fire departments that are actively responding across county. There's one in here, in the room actually here today, that helped with a 4-hour response for somebody that was having a critical incident the other day and went all the way across the county to assist. On top of that, you also have another fire department in the area that is shutting down fire service to staff up mutual aids or mutual aid ambulances or third and fourth ambulances during the day to do response. In this response planning for this ambulance service, the goal for this is not only do they help cover and create the baseline for the community, but outside the baseline for the community, they will go anywhere mutual aid if needed for backup and timely service. So this is just to create something and support creating a baseline for EMS across Jefferson County. Next slide, please. How we derived in putting together the costing and structure for this and the overall response. What we looked at was the areas that do not have dedicated or contracted EMS service. Now, from the dedicated and contracted ambulance service, we have areas that have handshake agreements. The only one that we found that had a true contract was Bessemer with Shoals, and you'll see Shoals with and without Shoals modeling throughout our presentation. One of the interesting points that we found was the amount of volume that you have within your system. Now, when I say the amount of volume, we have to be cognizant that we received data in a very fragmented way from multiple sources. So we plotted those on a map to ensure we had decent coverage. We suspect we have about 90% of the overall volume captured, and in these non-dedicated areas for ambulance service, we believe with no Shoals or no Bessemer, there's about 42,000 responses. And in the show, if you were to include Bessemer, there's about 38,000 responses annually. You're talking about a significant number of overall emergencies happening within these areas of service. Next slide, please.
Are you counting just emergency or all calls?
Anything that comes in as 911, sir.
So it could be, hey, I have a doctor's appointment, and that's somebody that calls. And
If
so
somebody calls
there's no
911.
breakdown on what's critical care versus.
It's not your data is not collected in a coordinated fashion across all communication centers to derive any of that information.
But it can be determined by the area that they're going into. I know when they come into my district, it's an emergency. Gunshots, fire, heart attacks, and stuff like that. I can tell you that. Ain't nobody calling over there. They go to no doctor.
Understood. And so what we did was anything that came in and was deemed a 911 call, we considered needing a 911 resource within our staff. We didn't try to make any determination of if these were critical or not. It was if somebody dialed 911, they needed a resource for any reason whatsoever. They deemed it as a 911 as a personal citizen in the community. We deemed it as they needed an organized response. So from this slide, what we wanted to look at was what was the baseline level of geographic coverage. From a baseline geographic coverage, it tells us that overall with a 10-minute response to urbanized areas and 20-minute response to urban, or 10-minute to urban, 30-minute response to rural areas, how many dedicated resources just to cover geography? You have over 1,100 square miles within your area. Having this level of response is critical to at least have something that you're trying to work towards. From that, we then took two other variables within the demand by hour of day a week, and we also looked at how long a response would be. From that, we derived the overall costing for the system. Next slide, please. From the overall costing for the system, what we gleaned out is that we believe that at a minimum, without Bessemer and Shoals, that it would cost the county about $1.8 to $3.4 million a year to ensure that dedicated level of service, just for the sole purpose of purchasing unit hours. Reason why we say the dedicated are dedicated units and overall cost, the volume and the level of, because you have a large geographic coverage, there is not enough volume and enough revenue within the system to support this without having some type of subsidy. In the communities, we talk about fire departments, we talk about police service. These are dedicated and essential services within the community that are also responding to EMS. The fire service years ago, in their vision statement for fire unions and fire administration, put combined health care as part of their vision statement. And part of that is the overall, that type of level of subsidy to make sure there's an organized response. The last piece I will say is over the last 5 years, the expenses for EMS has outpaced the actual revenues that have been provided from CMS and Medicare by over a third. And EMS is already living on single-digit profits if you're running an efficient system. And from that, this is dwindling fast, which is ultimately coming back on the municipalities across all communities. Next slide, please. So as we put together our program and what we're recommending, we're putting together 5 funding phases that are strictly related to ARPA funding. As we talk about strictly relating to ARPA funding is considered one-time money to help with strategic planning and infrastructure for a community. Because ARPA funding is for that, we've also been working with the county's ARPA folks, and in our phase 1, we talked about contracting with an external EMS agency, or putting out a provision for a request for proposal to purchase the number of unit hours needed to cover that at a baseline level of performance. In speaking to the ARPA funding folks, they say that phase 1 could potentially be utilized to cover the first couple of years of this. We also talked about in phase 2, purchasing both ambulances and fire first response resources within the community. Some of the resources here that have been ran pretty hard that fire services are using to help supplement and run across in various areas that do not have dedicated service, and for that helping them as their finances are dwindling as well, trying to support the overall county. We need them in overall response, and for that, ensuring that there's a level of funding and or equipment to help support that overall community service. Phase 3 is bringing the education. We've all talked about critical staffing. We talked about the scarcity of resources. But the scarcity of resources relates to personal staffing is to fund overall EMT and paramedic programs to help quickly bolster a feeder system of personnel into the community. Last but not least is what we put as phase 4. This is one we put in as an overall option. We understand there's got to be a lot of strategic planning around this. But if there was consolidation of the Jefferson County 911 system, there's of course a significant cost value associated with that. We deemed in the phase 4 of this program what the cost is that would be estimated relating to the provision of EMS services for the community and to build out a 911 center for just that portion. Next slide, please. So going back to what we talked about originally as options. So we talked about the options. Options here we really feel is not an option. But options one, the purchasing of ambulance coverages and creating that baseline level of service is a critical need for the community. We believe that should happen sooner rather than later. And as an organization, utilizing the ARPA funding to supplement until some type of tax base or funding can be secured, We believe that that would give the commission time to help develop what's needed to create that sustainable system. We also talk about putting together a public safety department that helps the coordination of efforts from all agencies. The other one is option 2. It's an extension of option 1, so everything within option 1 would roll over into option 2. Option 2 adds on centralizing purchasing for the system. This could be a centralized medical director that helps coordinate the medical direction and quality for the overall system. This would be for potential vehicle purchases or patient care reporting to help across all service lines. Last but not least is option 3, which would take a lot of options and not something that we believe that the county would be specifically poised to today, but a single provider system, the overall, for the overall community. Next slide, please. Our overall conclusion today is this report today is really a call to action. As we feel as Fitch, today there is no system in place for EMS. And it's not working well for the people in specific communities. The reason for that is really you have 14 dispatch centers. You have 45 fire departments, with 12 of those doing EMS service. 4 contracted EMS providers, and really no coordination at the county level to try to ensure the baseline level of performance, plus any ability to create strategic planning. The answers we have outlined are really in these 4 alternative models. Again, one we feel is not an option, and the other 3 need to be addressed as soon as possible. However, addressing those are going to take some time, really some strategic planning. This is, again, not something that happened overnight. This has been an organic thing that's happened years over years. As you had private agencies, you had fire departments, you've really had everybody trying to do what they felt was best for the community without a centralized coordination at the county level. Next slide, please. So as we mentioned, this really grew organically with no strategic plan or coordination. This report shows these serious issues. What we're asking for at this point is, and from these options, we want to provide you options as a commission to work through. We know that there are tough options. You know, it's really that call to action. But we're actually asking the commission to take a moment to let this resonate and help develop a strategic planning that will address this crisis in EMS in Jefferson County. We've given these options and we recognize that you'll need time. However, time, we would ask, maybe a quick response and review of the overall options to help support the community. But we feel, as Fitch, that the commission could express a preference for and options that would allow the county administration to look at the options at your request, allow the county administration to review, investigate further, and help develop steps for improving the overall provisions of EMS in the community. Next slide. And with that, we'll take any questions.
To implement what you recommended fully, what's your overall cost?
So fully overall cost is, if you talk about public safety department and EMS provision.
And ambulances and whatever else you've got.
Right, you're close to about $10 million. However, right
A year?
now, breaking down that into its parts is about $500,000 as it relates to the public safety department if you implement it in its entirety, and or for the EMS and with utilizing ARPA funding initially could range again between $1.8 and $10 million for the baseline level of EMS service.
$10 million a year?
No, sir. No, sir. You have a lot of one-time funding in that.
I think that's a low number. I think that's completely a low number. I think you're talking about 5 times that, at least.
Yeah, and our thing, touch.
Knowing, and I dealt a lot with 911. The consolidation alone is a massive undertaking. And I mean, technology alone. I mean, if you're not considering technology just people, I mean that's huge. Even though, and it's a shame Birmingham wasn't a part of it, but I know that between Birmingham and Jefferson County 911, they're actually doing that virtual consolidation now, which helps. But your point of 14 PSAPs is it resounds. We've got to do better. Out of Rocky Ridge, out of my district, there's one spot where it's Birmingham County, Mountain Brook, and Homewood. In one spot, you're gonna get, who knows who you're gonna get.
The four of them come, be like the records. And
Or nobody shows up and says, no, it's you, it's you.
The difference that you got, you're gonna get somebody. There's people out in the western end of the county that not gonna get anybody.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So, you know, you got options, and John will speak to that. I know that y'all know that there's some areas of the county that, A, the providers refuse to go to. And B, they don't have a unit and personnel available to get to it.
And it's a long
And
haul.
it's a long way.
There's some place that,
Yeah, something on 269 up toward the river. Automobile wreck, serious automobile wreck where you need help right now. You're having either a fire district or a volunteer fire department respond to it and do what they can. But to get an EMS and transport there, we've seen 4-hour wait time, John.
4.5.
4.5 hour wait time. Like one guy that shot himself accidentally with a shotgun. They had to load him in the back of a pickup truck to get him in.
And life, we have no longer have life flight around, correct?
Oh, we do have one station.
They do have one, but it was probably not available. It was rainstorming.
Okay. But just in general, we still have a life flight.
We do.
Can I speak? Sure. On the behalf, I'm the president of the Jefferson County Association of Fire Departments and also the chairman for 911. And also, I'm the fire chief at Rocky Ridge Fire Department, and I can speak for most of these fire departments in here, is that we're way under staffed to be able to send trucks out into the county and to help the county without some type of assistance. And the problem that we ran into, is, and we were trying to help. We have sent probably a couple hundred times at least. We've sent trucks to Brighton, Lipscomb, Fairfield, Fultondale, Forestdale. We've sent them to Center Point. We've sent them to everywhere in the entire probably area of the county. Birmingport, down to the river. We've already been all the way to the river. So at one time or another, we have sent trucks probably throughout this whole entire county. And in 1 year, we probably ran over 200 calls outside of Rocky Ridge's fire district. And we were doing that to help because there was nobody else to help. And there was nobody else that was available to help. So we were doing it, trying to do the best thing for the people that we could do. Well, these trucks are costing, loaded probably between $300,000 to $375,000 with all the equipment on there. And then we spent probably this year over $100,000 on maintenance for 4 rescue trucks that we were running all over the county. And so, just maintenance itself and the fuel that we spend, I would not touch it for $150 an hour. I mean, I'm looking at that and I'm texting Ty and I'm saying, would you run it for $150 an hour? For us to run the county, I wouldn't even consider it for $150 an hour because we would lose terribly. And then the collection rate on top of that, some areas is, if you're in North Shelby's fire district, some areas might be 75%. If you're in Rocky Ridge, it may be 45%. So we have a lot of Section 8 areas that we cover, and we're proud to help them. We're proud to help everybody. And that's the reason that we run to all of these areas out in the county, because we want to help. But financially, we just can't continue to do it. And we're at a point now where we're even having to turn down the calls. We've never been on a call and said that we can't treat the patient and we're not going to do anything. Now, there may be a volunteer fire department out there in the county that has done that, but they probably aren't doing ALS calls anyway. So, they're probably just going there, and if the guy's breathing, then they're good. If they're not breathing, then they'll put them on some oxygen or do CPR, put them on one of the Lucas devices that the county has purchased. But, this is a time for us to do something, and this is an urgent time. I mean, we're talking about areas that are waiting 2 or 3 hours every day for an ambulance. And Commissioner, it's in your district. Out there at the river, You know, they're waiting. If there's not a private ambulance available immediately, then you're not going to get one for 2 hours, at least 2 hours. So, you know, it's all over the county. It's the entire area. If Rocky Ridge wasn't transporting, the only reason we got in the business was because the private ambulance company couldn't do it. They were giving us 45-minute ETAs, and we're like, hey, this can't happen. We've got to get in the business and do the job for them. And that's the only reason that we're in it. It's not to make money, because I can promise you, if you're in the ambulance business, you're not making money. You know, you're not even supplementing yourself.
Hey, John, what's the average transport revenue if you're billing Blue Cross?
$78 to $470. It depends. If they've got good insurance, you could probably collect $475 on them.
What's the Medicare rate?
John, can I jump in on that?
Yes.
Yeah. So we received revenue for transport from 2 different agencies, and the lead agencies. One of them covers a lot of the western area community. We looked at all that. The average collection for transport in those areas is $348.15. Okay, so when you start looking at now, that's not enough. So when you think about, let's go with what we looked at. And we looked at a range, and our high was 165, creating $3.4 million in subsidy annually. That we said, with just that alone, you're talking about a dedicated or just a baseline level of service, not trying to make profit, and that's allowing for there to be some readiness built into the system. Part of the fire department, and I'll piggyback on John for a second, is the fire department's a readiness model. Currently, a lot of private providers, they're an efficiency model because they're living on such thin margins. So they're trying to meet that staffing demand. The fire department's a level of readiness for the community for those what-if situations like 911. What we're looking towards here and what we built was a readiness model that would be part of the community that is built to ensure that the overall, you know, areas of non-dedicated service will have that provision and will be able to operate in accordance with the system.
So what if you don't have insurance, which I know you run into a lot, and you have to transport them on gunshots or heart attack?
That's correct. So that's within that number of 348. There's some people that do not pay, and there's some people that you know don't have good insurance, say Medicaid, who doesn't have, you know, there's a bill right now that just passed to improve that here in Alabama. However, it's extremely low in Medicaid payments. Medicare is not keeping up with the cost per call. And with that being said, the third-party insurance, which is typically between about 17 and 20% of the overall revenue sources within some communities, from that, they are pretty much bolstering everything else. If you're in an area that doesn't have good third-party payers, such as Blue Cross Blue Shield, Anthems, Cignas, you don't have that in your provision. And a good populace of that, it's not bolstering up enough revenues not to generate for a community to have a subsidy for the provision of EMS.
So your mean average is $348, what you said a while ago. That should mean, so you got some that's more and then some that's...
Well, the average city, so like over the mountain, $600?
No, nobody collects $600 on an average. No, $475 is probably around the average.
I remember
for a good area.
We upped it.
Yeah, like Rocky Ridge is probably $325 to $375 at the most.
So we need to find out exactly what the county can do with the state. That's our goal, because we know we can't fund it alone, and we know we already have determined that it's too many 911, so we already know that.
We don't control that.
Right.
So I don't know how you convince those that are not in our system to come in.
Mayor's Association tried.
Yeah.
That's why we're in that committee, where a lot of them didn't want to give it up, and it was because it was also their jailer was also their call taker or their dispatcher, which
Can we go to the state?
Well, I think the state's already aware, but this is not just the ambulance issue isn't a Jefferson County issue. It's a statewide issue.
Right.
It's a nationwide issue.
Right.
In order to solve this, we're going to have a buy-in from our departments. I spoke about this yesterday. Our volunteer departments, our municipalities, and our districts. Okay?
everyone is going to have to work together, we're going to have to coordinate, and we're going to have to expand that out to include others in the medical profession, okay? This is a public health crisis. People are dying on the side of the road because they cannot get an ambulance. And that's something that we as a commission need to address. Now, we don't have the tools in which to designate and dedicate certain resources. But we do have the communication to get everyone's feet under the same table to try to find a solution. And I'm not saying that any of these solutions are going to be the right one, but it's going to form a framework for us to be in better shape next 6 months, next year than we are now. Okay? We have ARPA funding. We need to check that to see what we can do to get those resources. No one has mentioned the education. We're going to have to get more trained EMS people, more personnel here.
Well, I think Charles State does have a program for EMS, and there's probably others. Problem is, what you train them, keep them.
Yeah, and paying them enough.
Because
they leave us.
You can't recruit people to go to school and start doing this profession right now.
So when you do that, I believe what they talked about yesterday was to add 8 ambulances to the county. Add 8 ambulances in South and have them available throughout our area.
And my question is, where would you house them, and what area would you put them in?
So we do have that as part of the report. And they are in specifically on slide, let's see here, it should be 9, and specifically in slide 9, and we would house them in these specific locations, which is outlined in the report, and that's specifically for the no dedicated EMS coverage area. From that no dedicated EMS coverage area, then they would have the ability, because you have other areas that are covered with EMS, they have the ability to then provide mutual aid and backup into those areas if needed.
What is in your consultant report? What page are you?
And so in the consultant report, sir, give me 1 second.
And then the key is to contract those hours out. Okay? We're not, all right, and how many hours was that going to be?
So it's about 92,000 hours. For unit hours a year.
I would like to go back to my question. Where would you put them?
So we put the overall GIS study within pages I'm looking for right now.
That's the 17.
Second, I was down on the funding portion.
And to add to his question, how did you determine those locations?
Yes, sir. So I'll answer both of those back to back. So in ours, we're looking at the overall staffing to demand level, starting from page 18, looking at geographic coverage, all the way through the staffing models, which are derived to page 22. From those, what we utilized is we took those 32,000 overall responses. From those 32,000 responses, we plotted them in the non-dedicated service areas, and then we utilized the current fire stations that are in place today. And then we took into drive time mappings for a 10-minute response, and then a 30-minute, a 20-minute, or a 30-minute response, depending on the model. And then from that response, we used what's called a marginal utility value proposition, where we looked at how much capture happens within each one of those resources that are added into the community based on the current fire department staffing locations. And from that, then we derived what is from a diminishing return, what would be the total number of resources you needed from a geographic coverage.
And again, where would they cover?
So they would,
I know there's some shaded board pictures in here.
Yes, sir, I have it right here. I'm just going to speak from what I have. Bessemer, Homewood, one of the stations, has it. Then it's Hueytown, Garrison, Leaden, and then we have 2 different with what we call geographic locations. So they would be specifically street corner post or specifically close to another station for the 2 20-minute and 30-minute response areas.
Would you give me a list of those? And Garrison something, what is that?
I'm just looking at it from GAR2, so I got to look up. I thought it was Garrison. to look at your current station.
You know, you said it was gonna be like 10, sorry, you said it was gonna be like $10 million is what you told the commissioner earlier. If you took that 92,000, I mean, I'm not a genius, but if you took that 92,000 and times it by 150, that's about 13,800,000 or something.
I'm just trying to do it off the top of my head, but yeah.
So, I mean, we're well, 3.8 million is a hell of a lot of money, more than 10 million. When you're talking about.
I'll agree with the part where you're not a genius.
I wasn't going to say anything.
I see a lot of head nods from your fellow firefighters. Out of the total overall study, though, they still haven't addressed our 100% problem with every one of the entities in here, is staffing. Only one place in their total feasibility study did they even mention training and producing employees. That is our major issue.
Yeah.
Every one of us in here, including the private ambulance services sitting here with us, has vehicles. Us buying vehicles is not going to correct our problem. It's an industry employee problem, along with a lot of other industries in our area, that we can't get staffing to staff the trucks that we have currently.
And the ones that you get, they're getting hijacked by other counties.
And we haven't even addressed that issue. We're trying to buy more trucks. We don't need more trucks. There may be positional areas that trucks are needed, but more trucks in the system is not going to correct our problem.
Would this,
And you
would
can put
this,
7 more trucks on, but when they're transporting to the emergency room and they're holding the wall for an hour because they can't get a bed in the ER, and then the next truck comes back, and you end up with 25 hours of wall time at one hospital if you can't turn them loose to go run the emergency calls. Even if you have a
yeah, I
staff.
mean, this is a system-wide issue. I mean, we got to get the hospitals involved in this discussion. Are we giving this to these?
Give them up.
Yeah, we've got
I think that would help them to understand what we're trying to do here, or at least what we're addressing.
Well, and then like Jimmy already said it, you need to get everybody with their feet under the same table, so for you guys to read it and be able to
he
get
made a
feedback.
good point, though. They left out manpower issues.
Yeah, and we had already, Joe, we had already addressed that previously in some of the meetings. We've met with Dr. Mark Wilson. He has contacted the Hospital Association concerning the wall time. And that was one of the things that we could just fix immediately if they just change their policy to hand them over. And that would create an ambulance and a half. They try to give it to me in units. I'm kind of like John. I'm not that smart. But I do understand that that's one way to do it in the education process. Right now, we may need legislation because to train an EMS person, it's almost the same as training a nurse. And the nurses, they're going away. So we need to, and it may require state legislation, I think we talked about that in one of the meetings, to change that training period to make sure that we have a better line of individuals and personnel to man these vehicles and to put them. This is the most prosperous county in the state of Alabama. This is some problem that we should not have.
Mr.
Yes,
If I may, real quick, I just want to say something real quick.
Tell us your name.
I'm sorry, Josh Bryant. I'm the fire marshal of the Glenwood Fire District. I also serve on the Fultondale City Council. So I see this from a couple of different perspectives. In communities that aren't able to afford to have their own transport services for their citizens, and it really pains me when I look across the county and see these large shaded areas that don't have anybody even coming out to begin with. In some of our areas, we can at least get somebody out there, get them some care, put them in a car, put them in a fire truck, whatever we got to do. We can do something. But some of these areas, we can't do anything. I think what I'd like to at least ask the commission to do is to focus on the emergency at hand. This is going to be something that's really hard to fix. But there's an emergency.
What I'm asking for.
We just saw at the World Games what happens when you have an emergency. Way too many people to take care of, right? And what we did was we brought in paramedics from all over the state. We paid them $40 an hour. and we stuck them on these empty trucks that we can't get anybody to staff. Hundreds of paramedics applied to do that. And we had them standing everywhere during the World Games. And we had all these empty trucks with these people on there that we were just paying them more than what they normally make. And they came from all over on their off days to do it. Because it was an emergency situation, it was a short-term fix, it was something that had to be done. But the solution was there. And I think that if we could look at what can we do now to solve the immediate problem, in my opinion, the immediate problem for the citizens of Jefferson County is that they can pick up the phone, they can call 911, and they might not get help because nobody has to go. If you could simply solve that one problem, if it's fund Rocky Ridge and Forestdale and Centerpoint or whoever it is that already has some of these vehicles or mechanisms in place, the ability to fund an overtime truck, and the agreement is you got to go. If it's at the river, if it's at the county line, if it's wherever, you got to go. If we could stop the problem where a 911 operator has to say, I'm sorry, there's no one who can come help you. If we could simply stop that, I think we could make big strides in the right direction. However that has to be done, private EMS, our existing districts with overtime or extra trucks or whatever, I believe that's something that could be done immediately with ARPA funds with existing resources.
I want to add one thing. I think one thing for county oversight perspective is having somebody that's really helping with that coordination. One of the lacking pieces to that now is you have the fire department's really trying to do what's best for the community. You've got the privates that are trying to do what they can for the community. You have all these different moments converging. The county having a centralized coordinating effort, a communication center that operating, and then a baseline level of unit hours, if you can get that irrespective of from who. Having that baseline level of unit hours to cover those shaded regions with a no EMS dedicated service, that'd be a great first step. And as we kind of ended from our conclusion perspective, you know, as today, this is just short of a wicked property. All right, this is just short of that. When you start thinking, having the commission the ability to utilize, you know, these options and give the county administration the ability to go back and look at and help develop a strategic plan, because it's going to take a lot of effort and forethought to help move this in the right direction for the community.
We'll ask for those items one more time, if you can get them to me, those
Yes.
emergency, no coverage areas.
Yes, sir.
So when we leave here today, what are we going
Go to lunch.
When we leave here today, what are we going to do about people dying in the street?
We're going to continue our coordination. We're going to get with these fire districts, these fire departments, and these municipalities, and work together to come up with a solution. And yesterday I asked you to prioritize and quantify. And in our individual meeting we had yesterday, and I expect him to do that, and we will look at that as a framework to move forward. But we cannot, let me finish. We cannot do anything alone as a commission. We have to have buy-in from the departments, from the municipalities, and from our hospital association and our Department of Health. Okay, no one's mentioned that. This is a healthcare crisis, and I hope to enlist their support and their help in coordinating this to move it forward. And this is a community. This is going to be a community effort. The commission cannot do anything if we just say, "What are we going to do?" It's we is going to be everybody, and everything we have to do, we have to talk to each other, not at each other. And if anyone has a problem with what was said or what went on today, come to us and we will either explain it or try to alter it to where we come up with a workable solution for everyone. Okay? Now, we can appoint a committee here, but what I'd like to do, I would like to have volunteers from the people that are in this room, along with the Hospital Association and Department of Health, to come up with a framework and a timeline to get it done. This has been going on over a year. Yeah,
Two years.
yeah, and it's fast. And right now, everyone is aware of what's going on.
Let's start with this, Jim.
Okay.
Everybody in here that represents the department, get this study, is that okay? That gets this done.
And there's.
You got a problem with that?
Not at all. I was getting ready to appoint you and
No, you
Steve.
ain't appoint me to nothing. I got enough to do.
That's like,
But I'll look for volunteers.
I'll be happy to do that.
I'll be happy to volunteer to do.
Yeah, but I'm also volunteering Jim Coker with EMA.
Absolutely.
Of course.
To be a part of this. There's a planning authority, and so I'll be happy to take that
And
on.
Donnie went.
And Donnie West and Greg Silas.
Yeah.
You gotta get all of
And
them.
all those guys.
You know,
know the players.
Would you do that?
I will.
Have the county manager, have we talked to the county manager?
We said policy.
I know, but I'm just saying, are we going to include?
When we get to the
He
implementation.
has to absolutely be a part of it.
Absolutely, that's what I'm saying.
And anything that would move forward that would involve potential legislation or anything else, it would eventually be under him as the authority, as the CEO of the county, to administer. So he has to be a part of the process.
Yeah, any implementation that we would have. The hospital association, and he was delegated. So the hospital association.
Oh, and Theo Lawson too. Theo has to be.
All right.
If nominated, I will nominate.
All right, Millie, did you get, Steve's going to chair that, and I'd like for you to, if you keep like to let you put Chris on there.
Yeah.
Since he's been working from
And
day
Zach.
one on it.
And the other chiefs.
So, but I appreciate that. Are there any other questions?
Do we have a time?
That's what we're gonna try. It's not gonna happen day after tomorrow.
When can they get a copy of this, Cap?
In 5 minutes.
There's a part that I need to talk to legal on for that because it came out as a draft confidential for a reason, but they wanted section.
Was it,
And so-
where zero?
No,
Let us
we're-
know when you, these guys need,
For public or private section of that, that's what I'm
these guys need to be, you called them in here and you gave them a synopsis. But I think these guys, if they're gonna be part of this and you want their buy-in, they need to be able to sit here and go through this.
I'll tell you what, for everybody that's here, if you guys will get with Danielle, make sure she has your email address. The minute it goes to legal
Right.
and is appropriate, then we will do a mass distribution to everybody, and then you guys can.
And that's a start, so that they understand what these guys find report that they've done,
Do we have a
presented to us.
time?
No.
I know it ain't gonna happen tomorrow, but just, when will we have our next discussion about this or something? Because you can,
Why don't you let me meet, once these guys and everybody involved has an opportunity to sit down and have a whiteboard session and get everybody's thoughts out there, that we can come back with something along with Fish, in the recommendations on next steps.
and I think that someone that's directly being impacted, district being impacted, need to be on this thing. I don't want to. I'm letting you know that I don't want, because I ain't got time to be playing with guys.
We'll stay in touch with everybody, so everybody's aware of what's going on. And
Everyone
everyone
understands where the problem areas are.
Can y'all,
Where the people that are not getting anything.
You see Rocky Ridge is going to, I mean, you mentioned Fairfield, Brighton, Lipscomb, where they're already going in multiple places. So they know, these guys with mutual aid are going in multiple places. So I think they're very well aware of what's, or up in Borsdale.
And they
They're
also-
well aware of what's going on and where the greatest needs are.
and I'd also like to reach out to the departments that aren't represented here today.
Which
Maybe-
John with the association,
Chairman.
chairman, distributed that. On another note, the World Police and Fire Games is fantastic, and I expect every single one of your departments to participate now. 2025 start training. Cornhole will be an event.
Really will.
It really will. Darts, all those beer drinking games, you guys, you can do it. I got confidence in you.
All right, we have one other item in business, is it we're approaching the deadline for the ACCA committee representative. The board. Yeah, the board, the legislature, if it's the commission's pleasure, I would like to leave it as is for 1 more year. I'd like to make that in the form of one item of new business, since it's not on the agenda. So, you've got something to, okay. You need an item of new business? All right.
What is it?
For one, at least one item of new business, maybe two.
The one item, if he says what it is, I'll do that.
Item 9202, I just realized, was pay adjustment for Mary Stevens and Maria Knight, who are not contract employees or merit system employees, and they got left out. And we typically just do a pay adjustment. And for some reason, it's through the system, it didn't, I don't know if I didn't click off on it right or what, but it was.
I'll make a motion to begin consent agenda.
And then two items of new business, I have a second. Mr. Burko. Everybody?
Yes.
Any opposed? How about that? Okay. Consideration of two items of new business. One would be the ACCA. Both items are moved. Second, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any other business? I appreciate everyone. Appreciate your participation. Let's work together to solve this, okay? We're adjourned.